Hello everyone, it's Sunday 28th of February, it's been a beautiful sunny day here, and today I wanted to look at my one tip that I would use before buying any bamboo for your garden. So for the next bit of the video, you'll have to put up with Max being on my shoulder. We haven't had a fallout, he just likes to do this weird parrot thing where he sits on my shoulder, gets into the point where he just can't get down, and I end up having to lay down or sort of lean onto a bench to get him off. But he's there now, so he's quiet, and he's not running after something he shouldn't be, so all is good. So, firstly, why do you want to grow bamboos in your garden? Now, several different reasons. They're very fast growing, they're tall structural plants, they're mainly evergreen, and they definitely give that exotic vibe, certainly within 2 or 3 years. They're one of my favourite plants, and I've got at least 20 varieties here in the garden. Probably slightly too many, but I'll go through them in a video later in the year. If you're new to tropical gardening and you want to have a bamboo in your garden, or maybe you want a Japanese style garden and just want those golden canes, maybe as a backdrop, in pots or as a screen, there's a couple of things that you might have concerns about. Firstly, the fact that bamboos can be invasive. Now, it's certainly true, and especially in more sort of warm tropical climates, that bamboos can run and run and run. Runners can reach 3-5 metres or maybe even more from a plant. They can pop up in neighbours' gardens, which obviously isn't ideal and creates a lot of problems. So that's concern number one. And secondly, I think it's just the amount of care that you might think they need, whether it be extra watering, fertilising. So I just wanted to go through a couple of those bits today. But firstly, the big question, what is the one thing that you should check before buying a bamboo for your garden? Max has finally come down now and started behaving. If you're wondering what that is on his face, it's actually a lot of yoghurt I had a pot earlier, and after I finished, head straight in there, it's got it all over everywhere. But he's a dog and that's what dogs do. So the one thing that I would check is whether the bamboo you're wanting is a runner or a clumper. And if you look behind me, this large golden variety is Phyllostachys, Vivax, Aureocaulis. Now that's one of my favourite bamboos and it looks really impressive. When you go down to Cornwall and see mature plants, they've got canes sort of almost Coke can sized. It's really impressive, but it's a running bamboo. And the number one thing that I would check is whether the bamboo that you're wanting for your garden, whether the look that you want is possible with a running bamboo or a clumper. Max has clawed his way to my shoulder again. That actually hurt a little bit, but he's up there defending the garden, so we're all safe. So back to runners and clumpers, what are the main differences? So if I walk back, on this side here we've got the Phyllostachys, which is a running bamboo, and on this side over here we've got a Fargesia, which is a clumper. And the main difference is just that clumpers, they can't actually spread. They do get larger, so that clump will expand over time. And down in Cornwall there's some examples where they're only a metre or so wide at the base, but potentially 6, 7, 8 plus metres tall. So they can take up a lot of space, but they won't actually run beyond that initial clump. Whereas the runners, they can spread. If they're in a warm location, they can spread more, and if they're in nice rich soil, they'll just run through it really easily. Some, like the Phyllostachys nigra, can sit still for quite a few years, but then suddenly run once they get to a mature stage, so it's something to be wary of. So if you're starting a garden and you're wanting a bamboo that's trouble-free, you don't need to look after it and you don't need to take any extra precautions, then definitely go for a clumper. You can still get some big varieties. My personal favourite, which I'll show you in a bit, is Fargesia Robusta Campbell, which is quite an upright form. It doesn't spread massively, it'll still get to quite a big clump, but it does stay pretty upright, maybe 4, potentially even 5 metres tall, so you can still get an impressive plant. And that particular variety, it's got really impressive culm sheaths in spring, so it's got like a white checkerboard effect when they come out. So I'll show you that later this year, but it's really impressive, especially for a month or so around then. So why clumpers? You don't have to put down any sort of protection to stop the bamboo actually running you can plant it and forget about it. And unlike the Phyllostachys, which need a sort of warmer spot and a lot of water, a lot of nutrients, you tend to find that Fargesias, well, this is a bit of a generalisation, but in the wild they tend to grow in places where more foresty or shaded areas, so they can take a little bit of that shade. They don't need that sort of constant flow of nutrients like a big timber bamboo will, and they're growing easily in a lot of locations. Now, as I showed in my pot video, I personally don't recommend growing bamboos in containers, but if you're going to try it, a Fargesia is the best choice. Now, I have grown quite a few different bamboos in containers, some pots up to one about 1.5 meters wide, and they take a lot of watering. But Fargesias, they've got a smaller root ball, they're a smaller plant, so you might have better luck with those. I'm actually just now running around with random bits of cane to try to steal all the attention. So, let's be honest, if you want to grow bamboo, the main reason that will draw you in is these big canes from your larger timber bamboos like the Phyllostachys. Well, yes, it's definitely worth it, but there's definitely some precautions you also need to take. Now, these bamboos, they all look reasonably close together for now. That's purely because... what is he doing? I'll just leave him to it. One of these was growing in a large pot, and the other one was a clump that had grown at the old house, but then split it up, divide it into two. So from this year, they'll start to wander a little bit more. Now, if you're growing one of these running bamboos, the big timber bamboos, then if you've got enough space, that's absolutely great. Put it in, stand back and watch it grow. But if you haven't, and you need to control it, then the answer is this. It's called a rhizome barrier. This is actually quite a shallow one, but you can get them up to about 1 meter in depth. And what it is, it's a very tough plastic. Obviously it's got some cuts there, but it's been attacked by various implements. Now, one thing I would say is it's quite expensive. It works out between £7 and £10 a metre. But if you compare that to having to move house or get a digger in to dig up half your garden and control the bamboo, it's actually quite cheap. Now, I would definitely say don't go for the cheapest sorts and the fabric type varieties. You definitely want this thicker plastic. I believe it's 2mm. And for the bigger bamboos, you perhaps want to look at 700mm, maybe even 1 metre depth. It's a job that takes a lot of digging and you only want to do it once. So this is the product that I'll be using around these bamboos pretty much as soon as I've saved up and can afford to get all the barrier that I'm going to need. But once it's done, that bamboo can't escape. And unlike using solutions like concrete, which potentially can break over time, at least you know that bamboo is controlled and it won't suddenly take over your garden. This bamboo here is another Phyllostachys, and this is a Vivax, the plain green form. And I just wanted to show you how quick these bamboos can grow, even in our colder climate. So if you look here, you'll see these culms here, these canes, they're the ones that I bought it with. And they're maybe 10mm thick, 1/2 inch. And this one here is what it threw up out of nowhere last year, and that's getting on for 1 inch thick. So it's definitely a plant that can size up very quickly, as are most of the big timber bamboos. So you do need to be wary that it's one of those things where a little bit of planning, looking ahead, can help prevent a big problem down the line. Don't know what he's looking at. Like I mentioned, I will do a video looking at all the different kinds of bamboo I grow in the garden, perhaps later in spring when they started shooting up. But for now, I just wanted to point out, if you're looking at bamboos for the first time, then do a bit of Googling, do a bit of research, and make sure the bamboo that you're buying isn't A, going to take over your garden, and B, it's the right bamboo for the space you've got. It's easy to be sucked in when you go to B&Q and see these black bamboos. They look great in the small pots, they look very neat, tidy, a great screening sort of plant. But you put them in the ground and give it 5, 6, 7 years and they could be running everywhere. So it's worth planning ahead and choosing the right bamboo for your space. So as promised, here's a look at my top recommended clumping bamboo for the UK, and it's Fargesia Robusta Campbell. It's really easy. If you just plant it somewhere, maybe a bit of shelter, a bit of shade and a good rich soil, plenty of water during dry periods, and it'll be absolutely fine. Now this one here is a small plant that I got last spring. It's only about a tenner. Bamboos like this are well worth buying small. They soon size up and they can actually be faster than buying a big one, which is, well, probably just going to be a recent division and it's going to take a while to grow. And the ones around it, it's the same variety. That's from one plant that I bought this size about 3 years ago. It got to a nice big clump. So last year when we moved house, I dug it up, split it into 4, and that's what they are. So as you can see, it does grow pretty quickly, it's very upright, it won't spread and take over your garden, it'll probably take over maybe a metre or so in width, maybe a little bit bigger, but it's never going to run and appear in your lawn, your neighbour's lawn, or the other side of the path. So hopefully this video has been helpful, and if you just take one thing away, it's before you buy any bamboo, just have a quick look and find out what variety it is and if it's runner or a clumper. Most Phyllostachys are actually runners, and most, well, all Fargesias will be clumpers. So that's a general rule, but just do a quick bit of research and it'll save you a lot of pain down the line. Personally, I wouldn't be without bamboos. They're an essential part of my exotic garden. They're evergreen, they've got a great sort of structural presence, really tall, they change the feel of a space, and I just love all the different colours and clump varieties. So, hopefully it's helpful, and I'll see you soon.